All right, here is the pre-conference for Teacher 2. So what period and content will I be observing?
You are going to be observing 7th period, and it's going to be STEM.
Awesome. And so tell me about the students in your 7th period STEM class.
My 7th period is a very big mix. It's my largest class. There is 23 students right now. There was 28 at one point, and there's a few with IEPs. I believe one is a 504, and a lot of just very mixed female and males. It's very split down the middle for them. A lot of behaviors, a lot of non-behaviors. Pretty cool. I like it.
How many gifted do you know?
I have 3 gifted in there, or 3 that are on the gifted program for the school. But there's probably 5 or 6 total in that class that I think should be on it, just based off of like their ability to do things. So
Awesome. So for this lesson, what is your objective?
So it's really to get them. So it's our final project, because obviously finals are coming up, and with an elective class, it's only for the semester. So it's their one big project where we get to take everything they've learned and basically put it into a whole, and basically come up with everything, design everything by themselves, and get them really in the idea of what engineering is and what it can be.
Awesome. So this is a unit lesson. This is the final project. So for the students in this period, what will be the difficult points in bringing this whole lesson together?
The difficulties I think that they will have is the research portion. A lot of them want to try to use, AI and wiki and stuff like that. And I've taught them how to use AI properly. However, a lot of them will just simply copy and paste the first thing it gives them instead of actually like fact checking it and doing the research behind it. So I think that'll be the hardest, but that's also why I'm giving them a week and a half to do it, so I can check it and make sure the research is correct.
And so we've been focusing on like our like progress indicators for our 90-day plan, citing textual evidence. So with like the use of AI, like how will you have them do that in this project?
So they'll still be citing it using textual evidence to write their paragraphs and stuff like that. The way I have them doing it is I've showed them that on the bottom or the top of the links, if AI gives them one, it'll show the author's name, and that's what they'll use for the citation. I also showed them websites that'll cite it for them, so all they got to do is just put it into their stuff for them, because AI is where the world's going. I want them to know how to use it properly and not the wrong way.
Perfect. So tell me about the activities and materials you plan to use for their final project.
So we're using a website called Tinkercad. That's how they're going to make their initial 3D model. So they're making a beating heart for their final project. So I showed them bypass machines and everything like that, showing them that like a heart doesn't actually have to be a heart anymore for it to function like one. So Tinkercad we're using, and then for their actual 3D model, some are going to be making hydraulic ones, some are going to be making electronic that pulse. There's a bunch of different options that are available to them. It just depends on the individual student themselves.
Awesome. So how will the activities support or align with your lesson objective?
It aligns with the engineering side of the objective, but it also aligns with obviously the 90-day plan. They're doing the research, they're presenting it to the class, everything like that. And plus I think it's a fun final project, especially for the ones that want to move into engineering as a field. I want them to have all senses of engineering. That's what we've done all semester, is a different sense. So
That's perfect. And we were talking before we began that there are probably some that won't go the engineering route but might go the medical route, and so the beating heart is kind of a cool thing for them to do since they might not go the engineering route. So how will the activities and materials relate to student needs?
It really depends on the individual student. Obviously, each student's different. Some are going to have trouble with the research and the writing, but that's where using AIs and teaching them how to use AIs properly, the good thing. Some do struggle with Tinkercad, so I have them working in groups to help with Tinkercad, but each person is making their own one.
Awesome.
So I've got my, like, essentially I call them the class leaders, and they basically go around, help everybody, and it's pretty cool.
Awesome. And that kind of moves into the next one. How do you plan to group your students? And so you just said the leaders kind of go around. Did you use data to create your groups?
It did. I took not just like the best grades on the projects, but essentially the effort I've seen put in students. Because some students, like, obviously some students can't draw, but they're really good at math and everything like that. So the way I did it was essentially I grouped them based off of what they were good at. So in each class, and you'll see it, they're in groups, but each person at the group is better at something than another person. That'll help them be able to caveat and basically help each other with stuff they're not good at.
I love that. So let's look at a couple of the questions that you're planning on using. This obviously is like a multiple day, maybe even a week and a half project, 2-week project. We're starting testing today, but what are some like bell ringer questions that you plan to like lead them into the projects?
Yesterday, their bell ringer was, yesterday their bell ringer was, what is a heart? And a lot of them basically, explain that their heart is in their body. But then after everybody did their thing, I had 2 students actually say, well, a motherboard and its chip is a heart. I'm like, well, it's technically a brain, but yes, like, it got them off the idea that it has to be a human heart to be a heart. I was explaining them and showing them examples of like a heart of a machine and everything like that to kind of change their mindsets.
Awesome. I love it. I love that it led into like a discussion rather than it just leaving it as like an answer. So when we're looking at like the questions that kind of lead into like discussions and stuff, what level of like DOK are they when we're looking at questioning?
Most of this project will be level 4. Obviously the designing and everything, all that sits in the same. There are some that do drop down to level 3, and I have, the first day was level 2. So Monday when we did like our initial like explanations and talking everything, that was all level 2, note taking, stuff like that. So most of it sits at level 4.
How do your questions relate to student needs?
I like to have a generalized question. The same way I do like discussions, everything. I like everything to be generalized, so it's not too high for some students, it's not too low for others, it's all medium. And obviously there are some that still struggle with that medium level, but that's kind of where I kind of keep it. Because usually once you get into the discussion, you see people open up more and it leads them to that higher level.
And how do you sequence your questions when you're doing these things?
I usually start with like an easy question, like I was explaining with the bell ringer the other day. Start with something that's going to get them all to think, and then once they're on that level of thinking, then we'll go higher and higher and higher. And we've done it all semester. We started with level 1 stuff, and we've moved to like this high level where my expectation is that high for these students.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And how do you determine when they are ready for like those high level questions?
Each class is different. Obviously I teach a PLTW class, which those students are already at that high level even at the beginning of the semester, where like some of these 7th graders coming from their 6th grade classes and everything, they have to get to that level. We're not jumping to it. We have to gradually increase. Mm-hmm. And I have found that all, if not majority of my students are at that level now just because we've worked on it for so long.
For sure. And so when you're assessing the lesson, like what type of like how will you like know that they've like mastered the lesson? Like what's like a good exit ticket for them?
So
I guess that each day, even like as they're building.
Yeah, I'll use Friday as an example. So Friday's when they're gonna do like their initial like research, where they're going to give me some like links and stuff like that, and then basically give me like a synopsis of what is on their links and their research. And essentially they're just gonna write me a paragraph based off of what their finding was, and that's how I'll judge based off their research if they have found what I expect, or if we need to go back and reassess, basically.
Do they handwrite or type? I
prefer typing, just because some students do struggle with the motor skills of writing.
That's true.
But we do notes where I do have them write.
Awesome.
And I like to have them learn that motor skill, especially for engineering. Like it's you can't argue with it. You have to write it out. So.
Yeah, that's true. How will you know if students have mastered your lesson objective? What data will you use?
I mean, I'm going to base it off the final grade. So there's 3 parts to the final. The first one's their initial findings and their research. Second part's their initial model. And then their final one's going to be their physical model plus their presentation.
Okay.
And I'll grade them based off of each thing that they're able to do, basically leading up to the actual final grade itself. And that's how I'll judge it.
Is there any need for like differentiation based on like L's, your 504s, gifted?
I think there always is. And especially like for note taking and stuff like that. I had never used Google Classroom before until this year. So with note taking, with my 504 students that do struggle with the note taking and stuff like that, I have started uploading them to Google Classroom so they have everything for them. And then for differentiation instructions in the classroom themselves, I always do the notes with the students. I don't just throw a slide up on the board. I'll actually physically like write out everything or show them the videos or whatever. I like to do it with them, so for the 504s that don't like doing the notes or can't do the notes, they see that like I do them, so they're more prone to do it from what I found out.
And how many of your students do you expect to master this whole project?
Honestly, I think 98% would not be a bad thing. I'll have 1 or 2 that just won't do anything, and they're tracked by behaviors. It is what it is, but I genuinely believe all my students will get to that point because I have some really bright kids. I don't mean to brag, but I got really lucky.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.